Okay, I am Janet Lee Jones, formerly known as Janet Lee Ford, and I'm not named after the actress. I was named after my dad, whose middle name was Lee. Born in April 29th of 1944 in Horton, Kansas. It's just a little,
I lived in Horton, so.
little west of Atchison. My family originated from Scotland. My mom's family and my dad's family. And we have a genealogy book here with my family's history. When I was born, my dad was stationed in Louisiana, Army Air Force, later went to Japan, and I have my first pair of shoes that he brought me. Cute. And my feet were never, ever known as small again. I am number 3 out of 7 children, 5 girls and 2 boys. And to this day in Horton, Kansas, I'm known as number 3. They say, well, which one? I'm number 3. First memory of Horton was at 3 years old. I was in my first tornado, which is common for Kansas. And ever since then, I've been fascinated by tornadoes. I'm not afraid of them. I have a sister that's terrified of them, totally opposite of me. We moved to Atchison from Horton. I started school in 1950 in a one-room schoolhouse. My dad was the only teacher. 1951, we moved to Potter, Kansas, also just a little west of Atchison. And from there, during my first year of school, we went to Elgin, Illinois, which is where I finished the 2nd grade. We moved to a large dairy farm where we had a milk separator, and I can remember we had to clean that separator before we went to school in the morning. That thing must have had 100 pieces, if you've ever seen an old-fashioned milk separator. From there, the only thing I remember about that school, and I probably shouldn't tell this, but there was one little boy named Sylvester, and if we got good grades for the week, it was always him and I, and we got to go in a curtained off part of the schoolroom and play board games. And the only game I can remember that him and I always wanted to play, and it's been banned, was Little Black Sambo. I have no idea how it was played, but I can remember that like it was yesterday. In 1952, we moved down by Wichita, by Pearlie, Kansas, and I was 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades there, and my dad was the teacher and the principal. It was while I was there that I joined 4-H at the age of 7. You couldn't join until you were 8, but I was let in at age 7 because my mother was a sewing and cooking instructor. And this was one of my first projects.
Oh, very good for 7.
Yeah.
Oh, very nice.
Wow.
So you know how old these things are.
Just about 10 years.
20. 20 years.
Yeah. We served, our 4-H club served meals once a month at a community center in town. We lived out in the country. At that point in my life, my sisters and I was 10, I had a sister 11 and a half and one that was 13, and we were the singing Ford sisters. And we sang at the December Christmas dinner. And unbeknownst to my parents, I had practiced and got up and sang a solo, a little brown church in the Wildwood. And I must have had stage fright. And we'd had a guest that day, and she got up and helped me sing. And that guest was little Brenda Lee.
Oh my.
Who's better known for rocking around the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
So, also a lot of tornadoes down there. We had an old cellar that we ran to. Normally it was just mom and us 6 kids, probably cats and dogs, and ran to that cellar every time a storm came through. And I can remember coming home from the community center one time, and we were going one direction, tornado was over here in the field going the other direction. And it fascinated me. There was also the tornado in Udall down there that year. And my dad took us the next morning after that big tornado and showed us the aftermath of it.
That's where I went to school.
In Udall. In 1955, at 11 years old, we moved from Furley to Centralia, Kansas, which is northeast Kansas. I did 6th and 7th grade there. My dad was the teacher, principal, coach, and the bus driver.
Wow.
Yeah.
We moved from Furley to Centralia, which was quite a distance, in a semi-truck with 4 of us kids out of the 6 in the back of the semi-truck. Thank God we did not get stopped by the police. But we also had parakeet and a dog and a cat back there in the back end of that semi-truck. And I can remember I was causing a little trouble and I ended up in the front of the semi. It was at that point that my dad, at the local barber shop, brought Joe home. Joe was a pheasant.
Is it what?
A
Pheasant.
A golden pheasant.
Wow.
And he decided to raise them for a business. So we had a whole backyard full of pheasant pens, 20 different breeds. Most of you know pheasants as the ringneck that you hunt.
She brought pheasants.
This was Joe.
Yeah.
But my dad raised all of these different kinds of pheasants.
Were the females as pretty as that?
These are the males. No, the females are typically
Gray, whatever.
brown.
And did he sell them as pets or?
He sold them as a business, big business. And I can remember at one point he said the eggs, of some of them, the eggs were worth $50.
Wow.
And after they had hatched, they were worth more than that. So
Hmm.
you know, it was quite a business. And I helped him all those years feed and water them. But every place we moved, first thing he did was put up pheasant pens in the backyard. But he also raised parakeets. And we had a sunroom with the parakeets out there. And I can remember one hailstorm came up. A couple of the really expensive pheasants had to be brought inside to keep from getting hit in the head with the hailstones, and then he'd lose them. That was the year we were featured in the local newspaper because all 8 members of the family were in school at one time. My mother was finishing high school, Dad was going to college, which he did every single year, and my sister had started kindergarten. In 1957, at 13 years old, we moved to Berne, Kansas. Dad again was the teacher, principal, coach, bus driver. And I played basketball, also ran track, hurdles, high jump, 75 and 100-yard dash, and all the relays. And had a chance to go to state that year, and I probably would have placed. I got up that morning with the mumps. Missed my big chance. 1959, at 15 years old, we moved to Everest, Kansas. My dad again was a school teacher and principal at the grade school, but I was in high school. And there I played basketball. Graduated from there in 1962. Dad taught me 7 years out of 12. It's like I couldn't get away from him. He was always there.
You had to be good.
My senior year was involved in youth group at church. Was very involved in that. We spent summer camp at Baker University. We had a missionary student from Kenya, and I decided I wanted to be a missionary. I don't know what happened to that idea. I never was a missionary. Then I decided airline stewardess. I was 5'9". At that point, 1962, I was too tall to be an airline stewardess. So I got a scholarship for Baker. I turned it down because I decided I wanted to go into the Air Force. So the scholarship was gone. Didn't pass the Air Force physical. So I didn't do that either. So I came to Kansas City in 1962 on graduation night. I worked at Commerce Bank with my sister and my cousin. That lasted 3 months as a bookkeeper. They replaced us with computers, and I was not the least bit interested in computers. So 62 and 63, I worked at New Way Drive-In at 64th and Truce. And if you looked across the street to the southeast, there was nothing there. It was open field. And I can remember that, and now look how it's built up around there. At '64, I worked Associated Photographers, developing film, and I kept falling asleep, and that was not a good job for me. I kept falling asleep in the dark rooms. So, then I went to, that same year, I quit there and I went to, at 20 years old, you had to be 21 to attend bar, but I went to Park Avenue at 11th and Broadway and attended bar down there. '67, I met Richard Wilkinson. Married him in '68. He had 7 kids and 1 grandchild. And the two of us bowled at King Louis East at 70th and Truce. 1970, my son Darren was born. And in '71, I went to work at King Louis East for 10 years, where we signed up bowlers. I was the Girl Friday, one of the coaches, assistant manager, and I bowled in the King Louis Traveling League. I have something else that is years old, which no longer fits me. I was going to wear it, but it no longer fits me. So, I found a place to put all of my awards and everything. So.
Wow, that's nice.
In 1974, I became a single mother and lost our 2-year-old grandson with cancer. In 1979 to '84, I worked at for 2 years and then managed the 7-Eleven at Gregory and Prospect. 81 to '84, I worked at Hilltop Gardens, 17th and Broadway. And in '81, I started playing bingo. In '84, I quit 7-Eleven and I married Jim Price, who had 2 children. My son Darren was diagnosed with epilepsy. So I did a lot of fundraisers inside of Walmart at that time, which you can't do anymore. And I did walks over at Corporate Woods. And one of the walks I took first place and I won my first airplane ride. Went to Phoenix. I swore I'd never ride an airplane, but it was a free trip and I went. I had 2 sisters in Phoenix and we had a good time. 1984, they say life begins at 40. I remarried to Jim Price, who was a former member of this club, and also started to work at Walmart.
Wow.
Bob Houston was one of my assistant managers.
Wow.
At Walmart, I started in the fabrics department, and then I became a manager of the domestics department. I also did inventory control, and I was a soft lines processor, and I just retired last October, 37 years with Walmart. 1999, I played bingo over at Southside Optimist, and they were doing a fundraiser for Camp Quality. And they explained what Camp Quality was, which is a camp for children with cancer. And because I had lost a grandson with cancer, I got really involved with that. And for years, I did fundraising for Camp Quality. I became an honorary member of their Camp Quality board. They authorized me to use their banners, their logo, etc., to do their fundraisers. And just one year, I had raised over $10,000 for Camp Quality.
Amazing.
And I don't remember the year I joined RAPEC Optimist. I have been the president, lieutenant governor of the district, and I was a district OI foundation rep. And in both clubs, I did the scrapbook and the A&A points. In 2009, I moved to Belton alone and started pheasant hunting at the antique stores. You'll be amazed what you can find at antique stores.
Oh, yeah.
Canister sets, which you would never think you'd have pheasants on. I have light switch plates, curtains, pheasants from... My husband went with me one time and I didn't think he would even know what a pheasant looked like. He found this one in an antique store.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my.
I said, what? And that is a golden pheasant. You can tell from he has a different crown than the other pheasants. This one here, I bought it. This is my most expensive one. I bought at Crown Center.
Wow, yeah.
which is where I keep this one.
Yes.
He got lost one time. I finally found him in my jewelry box. In 2013, I started playing bingo at the Grandview VFW. 2015, I met Dennis Jones and married him. We had two children. And in 2016, the following year, he passed away with cancer. The year we got married, I was able to join the VFW under him. Didn't realize at the time I could have joined under my brother. He was also a Vietnam vet, like Dennis was. In case you haven't kept track, I have 11 stepchildren, 28 plus grandkids, and great grandkids. I have not kept track of after that. That's the story of my life.